button also. This button on? Is the big black thing on?
Yeah,
Thanks on. Oop. It's on. Thank you. Chandi from that. Yes, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, maybe. Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarvalokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Chadharmasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ashmaracharya Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Om Bhadra Kalye Namo Nityam Saraswatye Namo Namaha Vera Viranga Veranta Vidya Stanebhya Evacha Sri Ganesha Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Enjoy Ma. A nice little group today. Very auspicious time. Tomorrow and Monday is Ganesh Chaturthi. So very auspicious, and we'll celebrate tomorrow evening. We'll have a side shrine, Ganesh, and like that for bhajans and things like that. And the tithi will start by tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, the tithi starts. Although on the calendar it will say Monday, but the tithi properly starts, so we can start celebrating on Sunday. Very wonderful time. Unfortunately, there's no name for Ganesha here yet. But actually, the mother of Ganesha is going to be in today's names. So we're continuing our discussions of the Kāli Sahasranāma, the 1,000 names of Goddess Kāli. And where were we? That was last week. We didn't do class, I don't think, right? It was because of Janmastami and the like. Yeah, we were overwhelmed with Janmastami. So we finished. We're on verse 27. Yes. Śrutiḥ smṛtir-mahā-vidyā guhya-vidyā purātanī cintyācintyā svadhā svāhā Nidrā Tandrā Pārvatī. So we had done most of these names. We did Shruti, Smriti, Vedas, and the different categories of text. Veda, Maha-vidyā, guhya-vidyā, the secret teachings, purātanī, the ancient one. Cintyācintyā, we spent most of the time last week on cintyācintyā. Ajma is both conceivable or thinkable and inconceivable, right? Conceivable and inconceivable. And I love this term, achinta. It's one of my favorite ideas, because of course we approach it in so many different ways that it's the limits of God cannot be even conceived, right? There's a verse in the Nirvana Upanishad, the Sannyasa Upanishad. That's all the verses are like almost like a Narada Sutta. They're like aphoristic, really tight, right? And one of them simply says, Gagana Siddhanta. I think that's Gagana Siddhanta. Siddhanta is one's conclusion. Like the teachings are the conclusion of the philosophy of a school of thought. The Siddhanta. What's a good English? I've never been able to come up with a good English word for Siddhanta. 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 It's Siddhanta. Anyway, so what is the conclusion of the sannyasi or the Vedantist or the mystic? The Padama. Actually, it starts Paramahansa Soham. So the text describes the Paramahansa, one who's gone beyond, and so his conclusion is Gagana, which means like the sky. Right? Sky means unbounded. Of course, the sky is not unbounded, but like the sky, more. So I love it. So what's your philosophy? Like the sky. It means unbounded. And then it says Nirvan Devata. And who's the deity? The deity is also Nirband. We got the word Nirvana. Nirvana means Nirvana. The text is called Nirvana Upanishad. But it's not the normal Buddhist use of the word. Nirband here means without limits, which means liberated. Right. So also the deity worshipped is without limits. The philosophy is infinite. Right, so I like these two. I like these verses. Are like Gagana Siddhanta, Nirban Devata. So all the verses are just like two words like that, like. So that's the achinta side of it. One thing we didn't get to because I want to keep going through the names, but it's backing up. We often back up a few stray points. I forget. There's always something you forget to say. Another meaning cintyācintyā means unthinkable and unthinkable. We interpret it mostly like we can, although God is infinite, absolute, beyond thinking, beyond limits, beyond conception, beyond definition. Still, we gave verses to show that we have names, we have thoughts, we can say 1,000 things. It is a list of 1,000 things you can say about the one that we can't think anything about. So that we can think about it. But another thing is like this world is thinkable, right? And so thinkable and unthinkable could be another way of thinking about it. Is that she's the manifested world that follows logical principles. Things can be said, perceivable thought, exchanging in the world, as well as the world beyond that's not beyond the apparent. The manifest. Another way of thinking is a manifest and unmanifest, something like that, right? And that could be extended to Purusha and Prakriti and Maya and Brahma. You can keep through the different schools. You can fit that achinta. Then we did svadhā, svāhā. Svadhā is the goddess of the ancestors, where we say oblations. It goes to the ancestors, and svāhā to the devas. And we gave some backstories. I think today also we'll give another little and one of the names, because these names are clustered for a reason. So they'll give a leading to another one of the names. But we mentioned that Tvam Swaha, Tvam Swadhi, Tvam Swaha, Tvam Swadha, Tvam Hi in the Chandi. You are Swaha, you are the mantra Swaha, and mantra Svadhā. I forgot to mention, one we chant every single day, Jayanti Mangala Kāli, Bhadra Kāli Kapali, Durga Kshama, Shivaratri, Swaha, Svadhā, Namostute. So they're not just like, how are these related to Kāli? They're one of the most popular Kāli mantras. It's these Swaha and Svadhā are there. Right, and during Durga Puja, we actually worshipped Swaha and Svadhā are individually worshipped as part of it. Kāli, Bhadra, Jayanti is worshipped. Jayanti, Mangala, Kāli, Bhadra, Kapalini, Kshama, Shiva. Each one of them is considered like a different form of the goddess and worshipped There's another of the svāhā and svadhā. So now we get to the next little cluster, right? Nidrā, Tandrā, Pārvatī. Nidrā, Tandrā, cha means and. It's just to connect, make it, it's like this is this and this, right? And actually, this type of cha, especially when it comes in the kind of penultimate part of a line, often it's the way it's. I guess we use like comma, 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 and then the final word, right? So often cha comes in that place. So it's meant. So actually, each one of these smṛtir and śrutiḥ and mahā-vidyā and guhya-vidyā is kind of the comma type thing, and the cha is there. But usually it's just there in order to make sure the meter stays. One of the things that's used to glorify the legit Sahasranāma is that there's no chas. It means that the meter is so perfect, that the names match so perfectly that there's never a need to put cha. There's no repetitive words. This has repetitive words, right? What's the other one? And they're the most 16-syllable word. That's the three great glories. And the reason why is it so perfectly written, with no mistakes, no repetitions, very long words, and it's composed by the Vak-devatas, the devis, the goddesses of the letters. So the forms of Saraswati, right? So on the command of Saraswati, her letters composed it. So that's one thing. But the Kālī Sahasranāma, we don't consider the cha to be a blemish. I'm not saying that. I'm just use it to glory. When you say something, it has the Lita Sahasranāma has no chas, it's like, look how beautiful it is. Not meant to criticize the other. This is so beautiful, but just see how beautiful the Lita Sahasranāma. It has no chas. So there it is, cha. But also, and is a very big. That could be a name too. We can think of a whole talk on this idea of and that's interesting. There's an openness to it. But anyways, Nidrā, Tandrā, Pārvatī, and then the next line, Aparṇā, Niścalā. So we'll take these names are related. Always as the cluster of names, right? So Nidrā, Tandrā, Pārvatī, and then Aparṇā. So Pārvatī and Aparṇā are intricately connected, right? They're both names of the same part of the same lila of the goddess. But we'll go Nidrā and Tandrā. So in the Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Nidrā Rupena Samstita, it says, right? So that goddess that exists in all beings in the form of sleep, right? So she is sleep. And usually we think, Ma is wakefulness, she's enlightenment, she's Jagrat, she's, she's all that, but she's also sleep. And that's why the first chapter of the Chandi is about Yoga Nidra, the goddess Yoga Nidra, right? That puts, the verse says, even when Brahma is praying to goddess Yoga Nidra, goddess as sleep, as a yogic sleep, it says you put even, like Vishnu himself is put to sleep by you, right? And Vishnu is awake consciousness. That's like his, if you were to give a symbolic, that literally is what it means, but if you were to give it a symbolic, fully awake, all-pervading, ever perfectly aware, eternally aware consciousness. He's asleep, right? What to speak of Brahma, and what to speak of what's a chance for us? We also get put to sleep. We sleep, every night. Most nights you sleep. You skip one night, it's okay. Step 2 or 3, you're gonna go batty. You can't sleep more than a couple nights without having major psychological. That's actually not true. You can. We can do a lot of things, right? If need be, And we were talking the other day during the Artakumbh. Mahakumbh, during the last Mahakumbh 7 years ago in Allahabad, right? Swami Bhajanananda, he must have slept, but we never saw him sleep. He was, driving in the middle of the night. He's driving people to the train station. He's arranging people things, new guests, arranging food, going to the camps, driving people around. It's like and I told him on the phone, Guruji, I don't think you slept. He said, I don't know. I don't remember sleeping. He must have slept. I imagine, but he might have been. He remembered the time where he spent a month not sleeping, taking care of Bodo Guruji during his final illness. So maybe he slept, I don't know. He says, I don't remember sleeping. The daytime I take care of the guests, at nighttime I serve Guruji. And the boys would take care of the Guruji in the daytime, and I take care of the guests, and at nighttime I take care of our Guruji. So it's more mysterious than we think, But anyways, generally we need sleep, and we're forced to sleep. You try not to sleep, you cannot. We don't have that choice. I think if she's the one that puts us to sleep, even regular sleep, She's the one to keep us awake, to do a divine service, like take care of the devotee, the Kumbhamela, or Guruji during his final illness. Maybe he prayed to Yoga Nidrā, please remove your mind, remove me, leave me so I can do this. I can kill Shumba, Nishumba, whatever. No, Madhu and Kaitaba, right? Maybe he prayed that way. But even so, we go to sleep, and then also at the time of death, we also go to sleep. It's like Brahma dies, and there's we gave the number, 33 trillion years before the next Brahma is born. So he also sleeps for trillions of years, as per the tradition, right? So even Brahma's put to sleep, right? So even Vishnu's put to sleep. The point is that every nature itself, it's a necessary thing. It's a divinely ordained thing, forcing it. But sleep also has another meaning. It's not like everybody goes to sleep, including Vishnu. That's a simple reading of the story, right? It could we give it it's ignorance. Yoga Nidra also becomes a sleep of ignorance, right? We're put into ignorance, right? Shiva's Ma put this in, and so the way Sri Ramakrishna described it, he always said there's Mahā-vidyā, there's Vidyamaya and Avidyamaya, right? So both are Devi, Avidyamaya Shakti and Vidyamaya Shakti, right? Avidyamaya puts us into ignorance or covers us, and Vidyamaya releases us or uncovers, awakens us. And Sri Ramakrishna many times said we cannot fight Maya because it's Yadevi Sarvabhutashu Nidrā Rupana. It's that Devi. If we're trying to fight Maya, even ignorance, right, if we're fighting ignorance, and there's no story where people fight Ma and win. Mm-hmm. She always wins, right? There's no story like I'm going to fight Kāli and win. No, it's like all the stories you fight Kāli wins. That's the way it works. The Devas can sometimes lose, but then they invoke Kāli and then Kāli wins, right? The Devi always wins, right? So we fight Ma, we're going to lose. That's guaranteed, right? So Sri Ramakrishna, we have to worship Mahamaya. We perpetuate the Devi, and he so beautifully and devotionally. In M's, there's a book called Srimad Darshan. It's in like 16 or 17 volumes in Bengali and 8 volumes, I think, in English as M the Apostle and the Evangelist. Not a great translation, but it's somebody's diary recordings of M's teachings. What M did to Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Nityaatmananda did to M. Wrote down all the conversations, right? And almost every page, it has him using this example for this Vidyamaya must be perpetuated. Maya must be perpetuated rather than fought. And then he always expresses the way Sri Ramakrishna would express it. O Ma, right? Do not delude me by thy world bewitching Maya. You know that prayer, the famous prayer, Ma, get me devotion, let me not forget you. But then he'd word it in a way that's not Nikatamrita. Ma, don't let me forget you. That's the way M would kind of gloss it or describe it. Or you say, do not delude me by thy world bewitching Maya. Means no, withdraw your avidyamaya and give me vidyamaya. Right? But so more simply, Ma, don't let me forget you. I don't want to forget you, Ma. Don't let me forget you. Don't let me forget you while I'm in this world. Don't let things elude me. So that's simple. So Vidyamaya and Avidyamaya is forgetfulness, and another way of thinking is forgetfulness and remembrance. Right? And Krishna says in the Gita, a verse that we like to think of, that I am both the grantor of I'm in charge of forgetfulness and remembrance, right? And so even when we forget, not trying to give you out, like when you forget God, it's okay, Ma's doing it. You shouldn't forget God, right? But also Ma's doing it by her Mahamaya. She's cast the Mahamaya, and that's one of her Shaktis, the 5 powers of Ishvara, right? Creation, sustenance, destruction, covering, and revealing. These are the Vidyamaya, Avidyamaya, right? So this is how she does the thing that she's doing. She does that way. So it's not just our regular sleep patterns and the cycles of birth and death. It's our forgetfulness and remembrance of the Divine Mother herself. And remembrance, and so in the Chandi, again and again, the gods get in big trouble, right? And then what do? The first time, they don't know what to do. And then they go to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and Shakti comes out of them, and the great goddess comes and defeats the Mahishasura. Right, the first one, Mahishasura, right? But then when the next demon comes up, next set of demons, Shuma, Nishuma come up, this time they go into the Himalayas and they meditate. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, including Nidrā Rupena Samprita. Remember, because they had a boon at the end of the last scene, right? When Raktabija was killed, they gave a boon. He says, ask a boon, Ma says. Whenever Ma appears, she'll ask you, ask a boon. She'd always say that there's an old Swami in Kālī Mandir. Do whatever he says. I don't get a vision of Ma, so I'm counting on somebody. Somebody here's going to get a vision of Ma, and they can put in a good word for me when they get the boon. Right, so ask when she always, and so they said, well, our problem is Mahisha was alive, you've killed him, so now we don't need a boon. No, ask a boon. So they asked a beautiful boon. It says, in times of trouble, when we or when anybody else is struggling, if they remember you with these hymns, right, and hymns in general, not just those specific hymns, remember you with these verses, right, you should immediately come and solve their problems, right? And so when it happened again after another trillion divine years, and Shumba Nishumba or come up, or in our life it could be the next tomorrow, the next time it comes up, and the next time another set of demons comes up, right? You realize that that if when we remember you, remove there's a teaching there. Remembering you removes our problems. Forgetting you is the cause of all problems. And so then, your forgetfulness, but then there's you take that. Remember, even in our forgetfulness, we can see Ma. In our ignorance, we can see Ma. Even then, we're not forgetful. We can remember her even when we're forgetting her. It's a mysterious. When we're conscious that she's also remembrance, forgetfulness, she's ignorant, she's knowledge, Vijamaya, Avijamaya, Shakti. Right? It's not a nice form of Ma. Right? We want the forms that allow us to think of her, remember her, feel her presence and protection like that. But sometimes it's not always like that, right? We can also see that's also Ma. She is Nidrā. Then there's an interesting word, Tandrā. So Tandrā means like, here I would translate it as half asleep. She's sleep and half asleep, or half awake. I guess we were talking. Actually, usually it's translated as half asleep, but if you think of it, half means it can be seen from both sides. So by extension, she's half awake. So it also, in more common use in Sanskritized Hindi, it would come like sleepy, lazy, tired. It has that type of Tandrā. Thank you, dear. Right. So it could be taking that same thing as ignorance or sleep, but also when we're tired or exhausted or sleepy or going to sleep. Maybe she's all states. And remember, these verses have described her as goddesses, as demons, as snakes, as apsaras, as musicians, even weirder than demons as musicians, all kinds of dancers and all kinds, every fairies and I mean, she's described that she's every cat. So maybe just going through every little state of consciousness. She's that. She's sleepiness. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu. Actually, that verse, that hymn, the Aparajita Stuti, is it called? Aparajita Stuti. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu. Each one of these names, actually, it starts out, you are the. Thank you. I shall. Rather than mess up the Chandi, which is not a good thing to do, I don't suggest it. It starts, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Vishnu-mayati sabdita namastasya. That goddess who exists in all beings as Vishnu's Maya. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Chaitanetya abhidhiyate. We bow to that goddess who is known in all beings as Chaitanya, as consciousness. Right? And then all the other, that whole litany, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, Buddhi Rupena Samsita, Nidrā Rupena Samsita, Kshudha Rupena Samsita, Chaya Rupena Samsita, Shakti Rupena, most of you know this hymn. That goddess who exists in all beings, which is interesting, in all beings, including, as different states of consciousness. She's consciousness and all the different states of consciousness. So sleep, wakefulness, half sleep, waking. It could just be every little category of consciousness. She's hunger, she's sleepiness, she's compassion, she's thirst. Every state of consciousness, she's every state. She's consciousness itself and every state of consciousness. Interesting. You could think of that as also cintyācintyā, right? Every state of consciousness can be described, and conscious self can't be described, right? So again, this could be another way of unfolding this cintyācintyā, thinkable, unthinkable, describable, undescribable, consciousness and consciousness's manifestations, as another way of thinking of it. So we've used this example, we've given this example, but and our Guruji used to give this a lot. This is his way. His favorite name out of the millions and trillions of names of God, and 1,000 we're given a class on. His favorite was unseen power. Some unseen power is playing. That was his there's a hidden power behind it. So maybe we can give in Sanskrit, unseen power is, come up with a good Sanskrit name for unseen power. Something Shakti, the Alepa Shakti or something like this, Adrisha Shakti. That's how I'm retranslating Guruji's English into Chase Sanskrit. He's translating to Chase Sanskrit. But he said that, so he said in his example, which is the example we use, is that like electricity. Electricity is it's an unseen power, right? Nobody sees electricity. Normally, but you see its manifestations, right? Like for instance, this light or this microphone, right? So electricity in the light bulb is light. Electricity in the microphone is projected sound. Electricity in the heater is heat. Electricity in the air in the refrigerator is coldness. In an engine, it's movement, right? Momentum. So the electricity is one and unseen, but its manifestation, that power is seen in all these different type of things. So this is one way of thinking of these names as every different state of consciousness, sleep and wakefulness. So, but because of we're giving interpretation based upon the names around it, right? The next name is Pārvatī, and so we'll go back to Nidrā and Tandrā when we think of the name Pārvatī. So Pārvatī is, of course, a very beautiful name of the Divine Mother, and usually we think of Pārvatī as the spouse or the wife or Shakti of Shiva. So it's interesting, just before Pārvatī is svadhā, svāhā, right? Cintyācintyā, svadhā, svāhā, Nidrā, Tandrā, Pārvatī. So there's a story I didn't tell last week about svadhā, right? So svadhā, if we remember from last week, is the daughter of Daksha, Prajapati Daksha. Satī had many sisters, one of which was svāhā, two of which were svāhā and svadhā. And I told how svāhā fell in love with Agni and then got married. There's a way how he got connected to, I think I ended last time with that story. But the story about svadhā. So svadhā, she got married naturally to the Pitris, the ancestral realms, the lord of the ancestors, to the ancestors. The mains, I guess we'd probably say it in Western tradition. Right? And she had according to the story, she had three daughters. Right? She had Mena, Dhanya, and Kalavati. Right? And so one time they went on vacation to Vaikuntha to get the blessings of Lord Vishnu. I suggest everyone go to Vaikuntha and get the blessings of Lord Vishnu. But be careful, because many times we've heard the story where the four Kumaras, the mind-born, the first creatures, the first created beings, mind-born sons of Lord Brahma, the four little boys, they were also visiting Vaikuntha. And actually, that's how we get the whole story of Nrsingadev. The gatekeepers insulted them, and they got cursed to be born. So they're very pure beings, but they're quick to curse. They look like naked little kids, but they're actually illumined adults, right? So so we can think of them, to dismiss them was very careful. You have to be careful around sages and children, both of them. I think both things have a unique quality. Be careful. So they acted disrespectfully. I don't know what was said. It was a long time ago. What they said to the four Kumaras, and the four Kumaras gave them a curse, and the worst curse to give a deva, a god of some sort, says, "May you be born on earth." Right? It's like be born in a physical body, because that's like a low We usually think, of course, in one sense, we're the crown of creation, but this is not. We're saying that, but starfish think they're pretty cool too. Everybody thinks they're at the height of the thing. So in the Deva world, human body or human incarnation is not a very relishable position, right? And so they go, oh no, not a human body, right? It's like, please forgive us. We didn't know what we were doing. Please, but a sage's curse can't be changed, but it can be mitigated, right? So often that's how the thing is. In a moment of anger. Out of moment of stupidity, you said something stupid. Out of moment of anger, I cursed you, right? But there's a line, right, that they don't say. But a curse of a sadhu is always good, always brings blessings. And we see many times, Narada's example, he gives a curse and always good comes from it, right? Durvasa also. Durvasa is the one who gives the most curses. He walks into a room, if Durvasa were to walk in before anybody had a chance to notice him, he goes, what? A sage is coming, nobody's bowed to me, I curse you all. That's what type of behavior? That's his, he eats only river grass, so I think it's too much fasting makes you that personality, I think. I get that way too, on Ekadasi, I think like that. No rice makes me very grumpy. Try not to curse anybody. But so they say, okay, this good will come, even though we've cursed you, but good will come from this curse. And so he said, you'll all be born on earth, but in different families, and great things will happen. So Mena, you'll be born in the Himalayas, right? And you'll marry Himavat, the Lord of the Himalayas, personified, right? And Mena is the mother of Pārvatī. So the supreme Parashakti, Mahadevi herself, the supreme goddess, the great goddess, will be born as your daughter as Pārvatī, right? That's one. Who are the others? Danya. Danya, you'll be born in Videhi, right? In Videha, the kingdom of Videha, and you'll marry King Janak, right? And goddess Lakshmi will be born as your daughter as Sītā, right? So she gave birth to Sītā, right? So I don't know. Actually, I don't know where the story. This is in the legendary in Puranas. I don't know. I can't tell you. This is oral tradition for me, not. I can't quote the verse. And the other one was and Kālavati. Kālavati says you'll be born in Vraj Bandal, in the area of Vraj, and you'll marry Vrishabhanu. And the supreme Pakriti, Mula Pakriti, will be born as your daughter as Radha. So this is so we got from these three, from svadhā comes, her three daughters are, her granddaughters, not bad lineage, her granddaughters are Pārvatī, Sītā, and Radha, very nice. So anyway, so this is a little, most people don't know, I can find story that nobody's probably haven't heard. So what happened? We all know the story of Satī. Shiva married Satī and didn't go well with Daksha. The story. If you watched the 800 episodes of Devaki and Mahadev, you've seen Devaki Dev Mahadev, right? 826 something episodes. Half of those were Sītā. I'm trying to Daksha being really angry of the whole thing. So so at one point, Daksha insults Shiva, and Satī commits Satī, right? She burns herself up in the yogic fire, right? And Shiva is very angry and very hurt, right? And we all know he takes her body, and Vishnu cuts it up into 50 or 100 parts. The Devi Bhagavatam gives two lists of both 50 and 100 Shaktipitams, but 54 is the common number, and then Shiva goes to meditate. He no longer has his Shakti externalized, his wife. So he just, I'll find her internally. I'm not different. Shiva and Shakti are one and the same. I don't need Shakti. I have Shiva and Shakti are one and the same. And he folds his both feet up, and he's and like this. And he wanders time to time to various Shaktipitams, because there he feels, as you can see, there's an emotional. In a Shaktipitam, you feel close to the Devi, but still no external form. Humber Masmi, like this. But there's a problem, because when Shiva closes his eyes and folds up his legs, we've talked about this pose before also. When he sits in Padmasana, that means he's away from the earth. He's not touching anything. So he's totally internal. So Shiva without Shakti, what happens? If he's not looking at Shakti, Shakti gets cold. Nature freezes. That's why you see him in the Himalayas and icy peaks, right? High Himalayas, Aparṇā, Shiva cave and things like this, right? And usually when you see Shiva with Pārvatī, right, you have that pose where one leg is up and one leg is down. You see that pose like Lalita often, this picture of Lalita has that pose, right? Because he's also touching the world. He's engaged, right? He's looking at Pārvatī. He's looking at Shakti, right? His looking at Shakti animates when Purusha by using Sankhya, by influence of Purusha and Prakriti, by the closeness of Purusha and Prakriti moves, vibrates, right? Like the sun shining on, you shine a sun on ice, it melts, and then you have rivers. So then you have all the signs of nature, and you have rushing rivers and blooming trees and like this, right? So he's definitely in the ascetic pose, right? No need for Shakti at all, right? Shiva's all you need, right? It's complete. He's the one alone. He's the one existence, pure self. He's lost but you can see, but the fact he keeps moving from Shaktipeetham to Shaktipeetham, holy place, I mean, there's some, he's searching internally, he's searching and finding his Shakti, his Swashakti, his own thing, but there's still some sentiment. So nobody does good when Shiva ignores the world, right? And nature just begins to get shrivel up and die, right? Except there's one demon who made a good use of it. That's Tarakasura. And Tarakasura, he got a boon from Lord Brahma, always. He got a boon from Lord Brahma, and he says, may I be, what he always asks, may I be eternal? That's not possible. And then he's, okay, then you think, how do I make a boon that makes me eternal? He says, well, Shiva, Satī is dead, right? And Shiva is just, he won't even open his eyes, right? So he asked for a boon that may I be killed. If I'm killed, I can only be killed by the son of Shiva, right? But not just son of Shiva, by the, I guess we'd say the legal son, the legitimate son. Means, and so Shiva is definitely not married, right? That's for sure. And he has no interest in getting married, right? He won't even open his eyes, right? So he, getting that boon, he raged against the gods, he raged against humans, and first he took over hell. That was easy. He took over humans, also really easy. Took over gods, a little harder, but he like that. And he reigned as, like they always said, he became Nidrā. He is the king of heaven, earth, and hell, right? And so the gods didn't know what to do, so they were scared, and so they went to the Himalayas to do tapasya, right? They went to Vishnu, and Vishnu. This is all in Devi Bhagavatam. You can read, and beginning of the Devi Gita section, it's there. The chapter previous to the Devi Gita section, it's there. They became very they went to Vishnu, and Vishnu says, "Oh, Ma, your problems is you've forgotten Ma. You have to go to. She can solve all our problems. Go and do tapasya." So they go and they do thousands of years of tapasya, and Ma comes as a blazing pillar of light, right, overwhelming. And then she takes the form of Bhuvaneshwari, who is the fourth picture in our list here of the Dash-mahā-vidyas, right? Takes on a beautiful form of the goddess, and what's your boon? Right, and the boon is, we started at that point also, it's like they said, we don't have we're seeing you, that's sufficient. He goes, no, there's you started this puja for some reason, so okay, may please be born, right, and marry Shiva, get him to have a kid, and that kid can kill Tarakasura, and we can have our positions back, right? The gods can be in heaven, we can rain down blessings on the earth, or humans can give sacrifice, and the divine economy and ecology cycle can be put back right. And she says, okay, yes, let it be. I shall, yes, I'm already, a portion of myself will be born as Pārvatī to the Himalayas, to you, because actually they were in the Himalayas, and the gods were headed by Himavat, the king of the Himalayas, personification of the Himalayas. But then then Himalaya keeps asking more questions, right? And it's like, okay, you'll be born, but just having you be born in my family is not sufficient. He asks, how will I know you? How will I love you? Give me knowledge, right? And then you have the Devi Gita spoken, right? This is a kind of a second part of that thing, right? Because you can see, you can have, literally you can have the Divine Mother and born in your house, but if you don't know it, if you don't, it's not, you serve your place in the lila, but he wanted some knowledge too. And we also want knowledge too. So he gives the teacher the Gita, and then so she's born as the daughter of Minu and Himavat. And the child knows in her mind, she knows, she can visualize who her husband's going to be. She sees Shiva, right? And Narada also comes up and also says, "Oh, I've looked at her hand and her horoscope, and it's very clear she'll marry the topmost person, right? The knower, the self, but don't be scared. He looks very inauspicious, right? He doesn't dress properly. He doesn't dress, for starters. Doesn't dress properly. He doesn't dress, right? He's covered in ashes, right? And ghouls follow him. So it's like, don't be scared. He had matted hair, dirty matted hair. And so like, oh no. So they're very nervous. They both know she's destined to marry the Shiva character, but they're scared. They're not happy about it also. No mother like this. So at one point, Shiva, when he's moving around to do tapasya, he goes to Aparṇā in the Himalayas. That's a famous Icelingam place that represent him. He's there. And he sat. And so when Himavat realized, oh, Shiva's there now. Now's our chance to introduce him to my daughter. You have to, the first, have you seen my beautiful daughter? Yeah. the arrangements, the negotiations start young, And so he went there, and Shiva didn't even want to open his eyes, right? And he completely ignoring it. And he said, "No, please, I want to serve you." He says, "I don't need. You can serve me by this is a typical thing. You can help me by leaving me alone. Just leave. That's the way you help me, right? No, we want to bring you food. I don't need food. We want to my daughter will serve you." And he looks, but so the stories go. He looks at Pārvatī, and she's very. Of course, this is his own śacī, like his destined, right? But and therefore he feels a little bit of awakening. It's like, and that's for a sannyasi living. Definitely not interested in a marriage. It's like there's nothing more dangerous than a very beautiful young girl whose father is pushing. Have you met my? She can serve you. She cooks very nicely. She can this is the way it's worded. And Shiva goes, "I'm not like I don't need your help, and definitely don't need her help. Take her away." Right, and then she argues with him. This is not known in so many texts. Or she argues with him and starts saying that, "What's the big deal if I serve you? If you're such a big sannyasi?" This is many sannyasis have fallen for this. Shiva set a bad example for all of us a long time ago, right? What does it matter? You're such a girl. You're a knower of the self. You don't even notice prakriti, right? And but even tapasya requires you can only do tapasya in prakriti. Right, tapasya itself is a function of prakriti, and without prakriti, purusha can't move. She starts giving a typical talk of sankhya, right? Because she's identifying you're purusha, I'm prakriti, right? And therefore, you can't function without me, right? And then I was trying to know how to phrase it. It's a clever, almost joke, almost an insulty, like a burn type of thing. Shiva goes. He says that, "Oh, you seem to be very expert at the Sankhya, talking Sankhya, right? So you haven't heard true real Vedanta yet, right? I'm a Vedantist, not a Sankhya. There is no Purusha Prakriti. These are all fake. This is all unreal. I'm only Brahman exists. You don't exist." Kind of like, there's that great video. Remember that? You've seen that video online. It's like you hurt my heart. Remember these little kids arguing? Have you seen this? Just look up on YouTube. You poked my heart. It's spectacular. Two little kids, like I don't know, 6 or 5 or something like that, are fighting about it's raining or it's sprinkling. Right. So it's a big theological discussion of whether it's raining, and then the appeal to scriptural authority. My mother says it's sprinkling. No, my mother says it's raining. And then one little girl goes and pokes the little boy. He said, "You hurt my heart. You hurt my heart to poke my heart. You poked my heart, right?" But then there's the great line, right? And then the boy looks at her and says, "You're pretty. You're not real." Like, very well, he's gonna be a very good or very bad sannyasi when he grows up. That's you're pretty. You're not real. That was his defense. And then there's another little girl that's a real mystic who says, like, "Well, let's just go outside and look." They're arguing based on the authority of their parents, but like, you can just go out and look.
It's a great. You poked my heart. Look it up. When you get home immediately, don't forget. It's worth it. But anyways, you're pretty. So basically, Shiva says you're pretty and you're not real, right? that's kind of his response. Kind of like that, right? And this is the way the stories are told. So it's meant. I'm not being disrespectful. It's the bob of the story, you know. So anyway, but she says, well, if you're such a great sannyasi, then you won't mind me being here. If I don't exist, it doesn't matter if I'm here or not. And he thinks, well, that makes sense, right? So she serves like that, but he doesn't. So nothing's happening, right? That's when we have the story that the gods become impatient and they hire Kāmadev to shoot his arrow to awaken some desire in, because Shiva's not waking up, you know. And we know that, and he burns Kāmadev. We know the story. But that doesn't work either, right? So she goes back home, and he moves on his pilgrimage, right? And then she realizes, Narada Muni shows up again and says, okay, the problem, he's a tapasvi, he loves tapasya. You need to do tapasya. And he gave her the mantra, Namah Shiva, the Panchakshari mantra, described, the Namah Shivaya mantra. Chant this mantra and do austerities, right? And so she said, okay, I'm going to the forest to do austerities. The parents tried to stop her. Don't go. You know how she says, don't go? Uma, right? Don't go, right? One of Ma's name is Uma, right? Don't go. So it's like, Ma. That's another Swami Chaitanya would say. But so where did she go? She went back to Aparṇā cave, same place where Shiva was meditating, and she sat in the same place and started doing her japa, her puja. And at first she was only eating fruit. She was only taking fruit. Then she was only eating leaves. And then she was only leaving leaves that fell, not picked. That's a different. And then she stopped eating leaves that fell. She was doing such fasting, right? And therefore, one of the next name actually, after Pārvatī, is Aparṇā. That's the next name, means one who doesn't take even leaves, without leaves. We'll go back to that name. It's a deeper name than that. But so she's fasting completely. And that tapasya. One of her names, the next thing is tapasvinī. So these are the cluster of names, right? This is about this lila. So Shiva, he realizes, maybe this is pleasing him. Tapasya is the way you get Shiva's heart. And so he sends the Saptarishis, right? And the Saptarishis ask her, what are you doing here? Right. Oh, I'm meditating. Oh, Shiva, he doesn't exist. If he does exist, he's not very good. You know, there's like, you leave this place. What type? You come here to confuse a young girl. You know, and so hearing that, she was so fixed, right, that even by the argument of the Saptarishis, Shiva himself went in disguise as some sadhu, Brahmin sadhu. He says, "What are you doing, young girl?" Says, the conversation is very funny, but ultimately he says, "I'm fasting to get Shiva as my husband." This is Shiva. He's a useless person. He's naked and covered in dirty and is very bad company. He doesn't, and she gets very upset, right? He says Shiva he'll never accept you. This is Shiva himself doing this, right? In that case, my fire of my tapasya, in my previous incarnation, I burned myself for Shiva. If I can't do it, then I'll burn myself in Shiva again. So she jumped into the fire, in her own fire. But this time it didn't burn her. Right, so this is another little detail, right? And then Shiva, and then she says, "What? I'll build another fire." And she says, "That didn't work. If Shiva won't, then I'll get another fire." And then Shiva changes his form and touches her. He says, "Oh no, don't be so. I was just testing you, you know." And so, but then there's an interesting scene that says, well, "Okay, I accept you as my wife, right?" Once again, but she says, "No. Last time we eloped." Right, as satī, we simply eloped, right? And Dad wasn't happy, and it didn't go well, This time, we'll do it. I want a wedding. I want you to go ask my hand for my father, the whole thing, And he said, these things don't exist. Family doesn't exist to me. The world doesn't exist. He says, no, it may not exist. The same argument. If it doesn't exist, why not? Then it doesn't matter if you do it or not. Just do it, right? That's always the argument that she gives, right? But so this is the way Pārvatī became the spouse of Shiva, and then they had the son Kartikeya, Skanda. Very complicated and interesting set of stories. And Skanda eventually kills Tarakasura. So thus writing the purpose of her. Of course, this is just a story version. It's not the real purpose of her incarnation. But as soon as Shiva is now engaged with his wife, looking at her, what it is, Purusha is now in proximity to Prakriti and connected to Prakriti. Prakriti begins to move. That's a classical thing, right? In which case now life, prosperity, and fertility, and nature, rivers move and forests bloom and the whole type of thing, So that's Pārvatī. So anyway, so the next name, so it's Pārvatī. So also Pārvatī, what does Pārvatī mean? That's another thing. Pārvatī, Parvat means mountain or rock, right? So we could take it at that level. We told the story for him. So Pārvatī is one who's it's sometimes beautifully translated as like the daughter of the mountain, right? I like this name. She's the daughter of the mountain born, the daughter of the mountain. So in one sense, she's born of the Himalayas, right? But she's also so the first in the Nava Durgas, the first one is Shailaputri. Shailaputri means the same thing. Shaila means stone, Shila, right? Like Shalagam Shila, the same stone. Shailaputri means daughter, the one who's born from stone. So we've given the general story. We'll give a little bit of a kind of a yogic or tantric interpretation, mystical interpretation, is that Pārvatī she's born from the mountain. So in the Chandi, Pārvatī's name appears when the gods are in the Himalayas praying Yadevi Sarvabhuteshu, and all of a sudden there's some lady taking a bath in the Himalayas, right? Her name there is given as also Pārvatī, right? And she asks, "Hey, you gods, what are you chanting over there?" Right? There's also a funny little scene. What are you chanting over there? And then she answers, "Oh, I see what you've done. You've been kicked out of heaven by some low class demon. You've lost your position, and now you're crying for help, right?" And then she says, "But then the one you're praying to, the one who exists, which is the Yadevi Sarvabhuteshu, they're praying that goddess that exists in all beings, right? That's me." Right, and then she comes, and then it says that she comes from her form comes another form. And so her name is, they call it Kushika or Kaushika, that which is unsheathed, or that which comes out of the sheath. So the same, born from the mountains, born daughter of the stone, or unsheathed, coming out of the body. Another form comes out. This is the same concept. And also Yadavi, the one who's hidden in all beings, is now manifested. So yogis interpret this very often as Kundalini, as reference to Kundalini, or proto-Kundalini, you could say, probably before the Kundalini idea was fully developed, but it's already there. So she comes out. So Pārvatī is a name for Kundalini. So now, if you the goddess who exists in the mountain is the body, the goddess that exists in our body, right? And where does she live in the story? When she created tomorrow's Ganesh Chaturthi, so this is connected to it. She bathes in a kund called Gauri Kund, right? And she puts Ganesha. She makes Ganesh out of her body, out of the dirt of her body, right? Using turmeric and the dirt that's if you do it like I do it, roast myself out. You can probably get all the dirt that comes even after a bath. You're not that clean, If you go to get a body scrub, you realize like, that's like from that. So from turmeric, which is a symbol of the earth, right? The turmeric represents earth. The color of the earth element in Tandrā is that turmeric color yellow. So turmeric and the dirt of her body. So that's from her body she creates some and said you guard. So Ganesha, she's Pārvatī coming out of the. So that dirt of the body in the yellow color is the Muladhara chakra. Her kund, her pit, or where she's bathing or where she's living, is Gauri Kund. Kund means pit, right? Or it also means pond, right? So Kundalini is also the pit of which exists. That Gauri Kund exists in our body at the base of the spine. Ganesha protects it also at Muladhara chakra. He lives in Muladhara, right? He's also a Lambodanam. He holds Lam, which is the earth mantra. So it's the symbolism is there throughout. So then it's interesting that now Nidrā and Tandrā can take on new meaning when you think of Pārvatī as Kundalini. Okay, it has an interesting thing, because then Kundalini has a quality of being asleep or dormant, right, and awakening, and then awake, right? These are all, so you can think of it this way also, that as Kundalini, as Pārvatī, who exists within the body, this esoteric interpretation, she's sleeping as Kundalini, and she's also awakening as Kundalini, right? She's in the half, she's Nidrā and Tandrā, right? Pārvatī. I don't have mine. I just look at the clocks. What time is it? Anybody know what time it is? Just I don't want to. 6 o'clock. Okay, we're doing good. I have time to sip water. Any questions so far or comments? Yes.
Well, Tandrā always said that it was a yogic state, and that perhaps it's that luminous state between waking and sleeping, perhaps meditation.
Yeah.
And also it made me think about the whales, because
Like the what?
whales,
Whales.
because half their brain sleeps at one time, and then the other half sleeps.
Is that true?
Somehow
That's
they do
interesting.
that. I've heard about that in aquarium, but so.
Yeah, no. So if we give it a yoga interpretation, then these are going to be various states, in between states, and between waking, because actually between waking and sleep is not just waking up.
Right.
There's also
Yeah.
that's a very, you bring up a good point, because this is a classic thing in Vedanta also, in the Upanishads and the like, of the three states, the normal three states of consciousness of waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep, right? Deep sleep, wakefulness, and dreaming, right? Right. And when you move from waking to dream, or dream, you're moving back, rotating between these, they exist in something, right? They exist in there's different, but how do you see what they? We don't know how to experience. Actually, they consider it the fourth state, right? Which means fourth is Chaturthi, right? Chatur, right? Chatur, which becomes symbol of something like Turiya. Turiya means transcendental, but it comes from number 4, the fourth state, right? But it's not really the fourth; it's the only state in which these other states exist. It's a substratum which they exist, but you only see it. But it's, of course, in deep samadhi meditation, that type of thing, maybe you could experience the fourth state, or by revelation, contemplation, you can get some experience of it. Or the thing is, it's not something to experience. The states are experience. It's the experiencer or the content in which experience exists. It's so foundational. But when do you notice it? You notice it. You can notice it. The yogis say. Sri Ramakrishna also said, in between the different states. Right, between waking and dream. Between dream is like at that moment we're not conscious at that moment, right? We don't even notice it happen. I don't know when it happens, right? But you can make yourself conscious. You can extend those moments, right? Or another thing you can think of it another way is like those three states. Another way of thinking about it is the 3 letters of Om, right? Or any mantra, right? Thakur will describe it. Is that any mantra you say, when you say a mantra. If japa is going very well and you're only thinking, if you have no other thought, that's hard to do, or you're only thinking the mantra, right? So when you say the mantra and you only think the mantra, there's no other thought, right? And you say the mantra again and there's no other thought. You say the mantra again, there's no other thought. In between, there's no other thought, right? So that's one of the rare time by practice you can actually somehow see, feel, experience the fourth state, in which thought exists, within the states of consciousness exists, right? And so then the secret becomes a trick or a technique or a science, art and science, to extend that period in between thoughts, right? You extend the time between the thoughts, or between the mantras, or between states of consciousness or transitional state like that, because there's no then you're getting something like the pure experiencer and a pure experience, right? So Tandrā could be something like that, in between state this way. I started because the general meaning means lazy. That's how it's usually used. It's like tired, sleepy, lazy. I'm going. It's like, or waking up lazy in the fact that, or tired when you wake up. Not necessarily tired going to sleep. Maybe it's tired waking up. But it's been interesting that it could be this in yogic circles that has a very a more specific definition. Yeah, very good. I've been thinking the last week, like Tandrā. There's a lot to that word. I don't know what am I going to speak about Tandrā. I should have asked you. This is good. That's exactly what I was saying. There's something. It's that in between. Actually, a lot is in the in between. You see, in between. Also, like in Swara Yoga, like between breaths, right? There's techniques where you focus your attention on the breath, right? This is a very simple kind of awareness type of technique, right? But it's not just okay. You're like, oh, when I'm exhaling, Guruji his first teaching. I see the new kids come. His first like instruction to the kids, right? So when you breathe in, you get sit up straight, close your eyes. As you breathe in, be conscious that you're breathing in. As you breathe out, be conscious you're breathing out, right? It's actually really hard. We're not conscious of anything. We'll just speak of like the thing that we're doing 72,000 plus times a day. We're doing all the time, or 10,000, whatever. No, forget how many. 21,000, 26, 76 is the 20, 70, 21. Yeah. These are symbolic numbers, but they're roughly good. We don't even know, but and so he does it, and he asks it after, what did you see? And the kids, that was, they've never. Even the idea of just sitting down and thinking one thought carefully, noticing something is a big thing for a lot of people, right? But then that's not sufficient, right? In more advanced forms, and then it's like in between before when you exhale and you inhale again, and you inhale and you exhale again, there's a gap, there's a stop, there's a juncture, a sandhya, right? A juncture, right? Focus on that, because when you're breathing, you're conscious of breathing, but when it switches. What are you conscious of? There's something wherever anything meets, there's something magical, right? So right now the sun's going down, day and night are meeting. It's a magical moment. It's a powerful moment, right? Between waking and sleep, there's a powerful moment, right? Between thoughts, between states of consciousness, right? And you see in the Shingadev story, it's all everything in between night and day, between earth and in between earth and sky, between animal and human, between every moment, that exact moment, that's where the magic happens, And so it's a training to notice that, right? And so let's bring that into the Pārvatī idea, right? That what happens usually when you're this is not a class on Swara Yoga, but we breathe. Most people never notice that you breathe or that you're breathing, right? We don't even notice when we stop breathing. All of a sudden, I haven't been breathing. That's weird. How long wasn't I breathing? It's a weird thing. People stop breathing when they sleep, and then that's what is sleep apnea or something they call it, right? Something where you stop breathing for a period of time, and then eventually you kick in. Hopefully, before anything, people choke and things like this. But also we're only breathing through one nostril. It's another point, right? Have you ever noticed that you're only breathing through one nostril, right? And I remember when I taught the class at UCI, when we mentioned this to a class full of yoga teachers, and they're like even yoga teachers have never noticed that they only breathe through one nostril at a time. So you switch from Ida and Pingala back and forth every roughly 2.5 hours, right? Roughly, right? And we almost never notice when it happens, right? But it happens. Nature does that switch between sun and moon, which is when at sunset, and between moon and sun at sunrise, right? These are two, and noon and midnight also through midnight. There's a switch, right? And so it's happening in nature, and we're tuned. And yogis tend to get into cycles, and they clean by washing and flossing everything. They get clearer so that they're not gooked up. So the natural cycles of nature tend to follow that, right? So we know Ida and Pingala become united, there's a switch between Ida and Pingala, between right nostril and left nostril, at sunrise and at sunset, roughly, right? And so it's also when you're in Surya Nadi or Chandra Nadi in Ida and Pingala, right? Different things according to the Shastra. Shiva Swaroriya Tantra, the text that this is most sophisticatedly revealed in, but it's in many texts. Esoteric yogic, hidden esoteric tradition. Some things go well when Ida is flowing, and some things go well with when Pingala is flowing, right? And but nothing goes well when Sushumna is flowing. When it switches from right to left, to the moment prana is in Sushumna in the center. It's not Kundalini awakening, just prana and Sushumna, and it switches, right? Maybe prana is always there, just all the static of left and right being removed between waking and sleep, right there. And so these are dead times materially. They have no benefit materially, right? You don't make they say in the scriptures, don't eat food at sunset. It becomes poison, right? Don't make a business decision. Don't make a vow, don't make a vow. It's not, but it's a very good time for, Ida and Pingala have their own glories, right? The emotional and mental natures, right? But Sushumna's glory is spiritual, right? It is meditative, right? So at that time, it's a good time to meditate. So what do? We come to the temple or at home. We light some incense. We blow a conch. We sit. We chant Gayatri. We chant a little. What you do, you quiet things down and you focus on God, right? Because it's an opportunity to do spiritual practice. There's some benefit to it, right? But it's also that in between time, right? And so when Ida and Pingala, it's constantly moving back and forth, and its prana is moving into Sushumna, but without noticing it. If we notice it, extend it, direct it, encourage it, open the way for it, right? Not force it. We can't do that, right? Then what happens? Then prana moves into Sushumna, and then theoretically, potentially, Kundalini can also awaken. Until prana is in Sushumna, Kundalini can't awaken, right? So this is also, this could be the Nidrā, Tandrā, that very noticing of the in between state, it causes the awakening of Kundalini, here represented by the name Pārvatī and Aparṇā. More. All right, didn't expect that one. Aparṇā. So the next name, the first, Aparṇā, Niścalā, lolā, sarvavidyā, tapasvinī, gaṁgā, kāśī, śacī, sītā, satī, satyaparāyaṇā. These are very beautiful names. Aparṇā and Niścalā. We pick actually just like so. Aparṇā is another name for Pārvatī. As I said, when she was fasting, she didn't eat. Aparṇā means without leaves. That's the simple meaning of it, right? Like there's a word, somebody's name. Maybe you know somebody named Suparṇā, right? Suparṇā means beautiful leaves, or means lotus, right? There's a Sanskrit scholar friend of ours at Berkeley. And he says, when in doubt, what a word means, put the word lotus in and see if it fits. Because there's so many words for lotus. Suparṇā is also one word for lotus, right? Suparṇā with leaves, right? Paranasi is another name for lotus. We get this type of thing. So that's a simple that she's fasting without food, not even leaves. And this is the Aparṇā here means leaves that fall naturally. There's different and that's actually this is a type of, it's a weird type of austerity, but this is even in the Bhagavatam, it's mentioned the rules for a vanaprastha, right? They can only eat things that fall, fruit and leaves that fall from trees. They can't pick leaves or pick fruit, right? Or there's a thing in emergencies you can take from a field after it's been cleared. After, like farmers, like they can go, that the plants are going to be dug up and things like that. That's also an emergency. But usually it's just they take fruits and leaves that have because there's no karma in that at all. There's an extreme lifestyle for sure, right? The Vanaprastha, forest dweller. So it's kind of like this is the type of austerity she was doing. She was during this time of austerity. Not only she was doing the Panchagni tapas. During the summer, you surround yourself with 4 fires and then the sun above, right? Maybe you've seen pictures of sadhus doing this, right? A very important sadhana. Also mentioned Krishna in the Bhagavatam. He gives instructions on that for the Vanaprastha ashram. This Panchagni puja should be done, tapas, and actually it's done pretty much from the beginning of. It's done for 2 months for the entire from the beginning of summer, to the end of summer, right? And then during the winter, she would sit outside under the rain and the snow without any shelter. These are extreme. Even now, there's sadhus that in the winter they'll sit neck deep in the river, right, in the cold river under fire. These are extreme things. These are not. I don't suggest. But the thing is, I don't suggest these tapasyas, but we do suggest some tapasya, some austerity, some discipline's important. These are heroic. These getting Shiva himself, right? But if you want Shiva, it requires a lot of tapasya. That's what it boils down to. Right. Okay, Aparṇā. So, in the Navadurgas we have listed here, the first one is Shailiputri, the daughter of the rock, right, or the mountain, Pārvatī, right? right? The next one is brahmacharini, right? This is Aparṇā, properly. This is her, this phase, right? When Pārvatī was trying to do austerities to get Lord Shiva, she put on the dress. Actually, here the dresser is like now the symbol is like a white cloth, with a yellow or white cloth with a red border. It's like the sign of a gurukuli or something, like somebody doing a student life, the brahmacharini period, right? It's described actually she wore bark. That the old world, it would have been bark or skins that you would wear during that period of time. Now I don't know, at a museum, a display of African religion at UC Berkeley, at the Archaeological Museum next, there was a great because of clothes made of bark, and we got to see these long sheaths. Like I've never seen how you'd make, like Ram wore bark clothes during his austerity time in the forest. So you could see, kind of visualize how they strip these long strips of, and then it's very soft, and then she tied it with described all these things in Shastra. Tied it with kunja grass belt. That maybe these things have lost their. Not many people do this anymore. The belt made of kusha grass, but she described that she did all these things where she was doing austerity. So she's fasting. She's doing yogic practices, doing tapasya, right? So a yogi, in this sense, she's born from the mountain. She's sleeping or asleep, right, in the mountain. Now she has, by her tapasya, represented by the name of Aparṇā, she has to awaken. This is her awakening of the yoga consciousness, the spiritual consciousness, right? So, there's another meaning. Atmaram pointed out to me. Oh yeah, I forgot to look in the classical commentaries in Lita Sahasranāma. This name is also there. Aparṇā, both Pārvatī and Aparṇā are given, and in the classical commentaries they also give some meaning, and it's both meaning Aparṇā as Aparṇā without leaves, right? But it could also be Aparitna, right? And that becomes Aparṇā, right? And so interpreted that way, Ritna means the root comes from like debt, obligation, a debt like when you owe money. That it means that type of debt, right? So Aparṇā becomes she who has no debt. She owes nothing, which is a very interesting play or idea of the term. And actually, even some translations of the Lita Sahasranāma, they'll give Aparṇā rather than like the normal meaning, which popular Hindu people name their daughter Aparṇā, thinking it means that's Pārvatī during her fasting period, But actually, the classical ancient commentaries, they translate it. The first translation is she who is without debt. That's how they give it, rather than she who is without leaves, right? Right. But it's very interesting to think about that. I mean, she owns nothing. So the way the commentaries meditate on this idea is that like she's all pervading, right? But nothing binds her, right? She has no obligation. Like our presence and our limited presence in this world is because we owe. It's called karma. We have a lot of debt. We have a lot of obligations. You feel. I mean, the fact that you have a body, you're paying off your debt, right? And what are you doing? Creating more karma that require another body to pay off your debt. This is how it works. Body to body, debt to debt. This is how we're trapped, right? She's everywhere but not trapped, right? That's the thing, that she's complete. So that idea that I don't think about it is like another way to think of it. Not like without no debt could be extended to like without desire. Like imagine there's a bowel song. It's like I walk through the marketplace, but not as a shopper. That didn't translate very well. It's really pretty in Bengali. Ram Priyada sings that song. He has a better translation. I can not as a buyer or something like that, right? So imagine it's like it's like we go through the store. It's like everything. It's like, but imagine you can enjoy the marketplace, but you have no desire. Therefore, or you can think if you own everything. You don't need it. Or another thing, you don't need anything. Another way of thinking without debt, right? No need, right? No obligation, no need, right? And therefore you can enjoy, her relationship with the world is totally different, right? Another song that says, I shall bathe in the river, but my hair won't get wet, right? So it's like we get everything we do, we get just trapped. She can do everything without debt, without bondage, free, right? She's everywhere and bound by it. It's another interesting meaning of Aparṇā. And then Bhaskaracharya, who's the most famous commentator in Sahasranāma. He's he's the grandfather of all commentators on Lita tradition, Srividya tradition. He interprets parna as fall. So aparṇā, one who doesn't fall. Right, it's an interesting, another way of thinking of it. And so what does it mean? So it could be, why we're embodied in this world because we've fallen into this body in a certain sense, right? These type of souls, they're manifesting their avatarhood, right? Manifestation in completely different reasons. What causes human birth? Actually, in the what's it called? The last verses of the 9th skanda Srimad Bhagavatam. This is why Krishna is born. Why does Krishna have a body? Right? It's a whole meditation. And I love these verses very much. And it says, why do we have a body? We have a body, right? Because we have desires, right? And we have karmas. We have our kama and karma are the cause of our desire, right? We want something, and therefore we have a body to fulfill it, and we deserve something. We've earned something, right? And therefore we have a body we've earned, and we deserve something. We're being punished or rewarded accordingly also. That these two different ways of thinking of karma, right? He said, but this isn't true of Krishna. This isn't true of Pārvatī, right? They're not desire in the normal sense of desire. This is a different... so it's not... So Aparṇā could be... She didn't fall into this world, or it's not the human. And then the final, we'll do this last word because it fits. Niścalā. So Niścalā means, it has two ways of thinking of it. The common meaning would be not movable, right? Like Achala Saptami is a day where Achala means without moving, Niścalā without moving, not moving, right? It's another name for like Pārvatī, these like stone, Shailiputri, she's solid, she's unmovable, right? Motionless, stable like a rock, like the earth, right? Motionless, firm, right? So that's interesting. So by that meaning, Niścalā means not moving, yet these other names that fits asleep, it also means waking up, right? And so you could play this with moving, and just like we have the cintyācintyā, conceivable, inconceivable, we have moving and unmoving. We have both unmoving and moving. She's, as the unmoving principle, she's supreme consciousness itself, and as a moving principle, she's its manifestation as name and form, causation, the world of name and form, prakriti. So by saying she's unmoving, could her as Brahman, her as Purusha, her as Atman, not just as Prakriti and its evolutes like that, right? But then another, a little more sophisticated meaning of the term Niścalā is not divided, right? She cannot be split. Also, of course, you can split a rock, but she's very firm. She's an unsplittable rock, in other words, she cannot be compartmentalized. So although we see her as many, this world is many. She's also the supreme reality. That's one. And never one without a second, as our Guruji like to quote. So I think we'll stop there. Probably a good. Let me see what time we're doing here. Maybe have a clock. Oh, any comments? What time is it now? Okay, this is unheard of in the histories. The Devas must be pleased. Any comments or questions? Yes, you're always good for questions and comments.
That's not really a question, just that you made me think.
Yeah. Well, that's good. that's the one thing I want people to do. No, you're supposed to just accept what I say. Don't think.
Think about it.
I'll do the thinking for you. Don't worry about it. Haven't you think? You don't know how this religion thing works. Tell me.
Since Pārvati's the daughter of the mountain, and so she's actually, since you brought that point up, I thought that she's related to the earth. She can, she's solid. She is the earth.
And unstable, firm, unmoving. Yeah. But she also comes from, she's one of the Dhara, right? She holds everything up. She's holding up that which holds everything up, one of her names. Right? I think maybe we said that name, or it's coming up, or we said it before, I don't know. Dharinidara, or Dharini, I forget. I have a Swami friend that's Dharinananda or Dharinananda, I'm not going to remember.
With the earth, more
Yeah.
like she's, this transcendental goddess.
Yeah. But no, she's Mother Earth itself. But Mother Earth, usually we think Mother Earth as moving, as Prakriti, as like that. But she's Earth as in the thing that supports everything. Jagadatri, she supports the world. She's a Earth element, right? But the Earth supports everything, and that's her. But she supports that which supports everything. So she's the support of the Earth, right? So if we think of it tantrically or yogically, right, Muladhara, energetically in our own body, the Earth element supports us, is Muladhara chakra. That's our body and the world and physical consciousness, right? Physical awareness, right? Muladhara. Underneath Muladhara, right, is Kundalini, right? So that Muladhara holds everything up. It's our, literally, this is what we're sitting on. Get off your Muladhara and get going, That's the way it is. We're sitting on our Muladhara, right? But what do we sit on? So the Earth is our seat, but we're also our seat. Right, our consciousness is somewhere like that, but the real consciousness, the source of our consciousness, we'll define Kundalini as it's common to say, at the base of the spine. You can dig all you want. There's nothing at the base of the spine. It's like it's not a physical thing. It's like they've, there's clusters of nerves and organs that fit. The excretory things are at the earth element, and the breathing is the air element. They fit more or less like that. It's built in the pattern, but it's not an actual thing, right? But it's a map that was discovered. That's why you can use it retroflectively before the Kundalini and the chakra system was developed. You can look back at the text like the Chandi, and it's like, oh, that makes perfect sense, right? Because it still fit because Kundalini is not just at the base of the spine. It's like a very physical, worldly way of thinking of it, actually, right? It's at the base of our being. Right, it's our foundation. So that our foundation you usually think is like we always think our foundation is here. Is our foundation here? It's hard to see how it works. But the very ground, the foundation of everything, even below the foundation of our foundation, right? Or now we could use a different thing at the center rather than at the bottom or at the top. We could you can change the metaphor. We're at the center of our being. We create, this becomes the Muladhara or something like that. But it's interesting that the Earth is. I think I have it listed here as the Earth. So I was supposed to talk about that. So you brought that up, the Earth. But when you think of Earth just as Mother Earth, is the moving part of the Earth, not the unmoving. Right? And there's a verse in the puja, in our puja class we talked in it, when we purify the asana. Om pravitrayadita loka devi tvam vishnuna dhritaticham. O God, O Mother, O Goddess Earth, Prithvi, an Vedic term for Earth, before Bhudevi. O Prithvi Devi, who holds all on your lap. You are held by Vishnu. Right, so the same type of thing is that Vishnu is consciousness, right? As Vishnu in this interpretive scheme means all-pervading consciousness, right? Which is another quality. This is the quality of Kundalini also, right? And so the earth element, the earth itself, is held by Vishnu, right? And there's stories of Varaha, there's stories like that give references to it. But esoterically or internally or yogically, the Muladhara, the earth element, holds everything up, O Mother Earth, right? And you are held up by that. What does it exist in, right? The earth doesn't exist in nothing. It exists in consciousness. And even consciousness that's a nice word. It's still a descriptive thing. We can say consciousness, right? Consciousness doesn't exist in nothing, right? And so in the Devi Bhagavatam, the whole scene of Vishnu lying in the cosmic ocean, right? Okay, Brahma creates the universe. Awesome. Vishnu, where does he come from? From Vishnu. That's great. No doubt. He's all-pervading, supreme source of everything. The bija, the seed of the seed giving, literally the seed of the lotus of the world is Vishnu, right? But then the question is, where is he sleeping? Where is he laying? What does that ocean exist in, right? And so the Devi Bhagavatam says that is the womb of reality, right? And so that's we can't. It's like, what is it? not even consciousness. It contains consciousness and unconsciousness, right? You know, it's like it's the womb. That womb is a very motherly goddess image. These are the 1,000 names of her, right? It's given to her. Even though we can't, it can't describe what or I mean, it's achinta, inconceivable. But even this, I just said a bunch of stuff that's kind of conceivable, right? But it's not really conceivable. Whatever you're thinking is not right. That's the thing. Our Guruji had a great one of his lines that he wrote me. He says, "Whatever the mind thinks and wherever it goes is Maya." That's a simple line. Whatever you're thinking, that's not true. But it's also true. Divine thoughts are true, but still not the way we think. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you for your kind attention. Jai Ma, Jai Ma. So tomorrow evening we'll do some bhajans for Ganesh, for Ganesh Chaturthi. Om Kāli.